I'm just, where's the background slide?
Anybody who's arrived already will be starting momentarily. Okay, we're going to make a start. So hello, and welcome to this webinar on unmasking deepfakes, real life impacts, and the legal labyrinth. And I'm Emma Gibson. I'm the global coordinator of the Alliance for Universal Digital Rights, or AUDRI for short. And I'm going to be joined by some special guests as we explore the way in which generative AI is impacting our lives in a particularly devastating way. First, we'll be hearing from Reuben, Hamlyn, and Sophie Compton, who are the co-founders of the campaign My Image, My Choice, and also co-directors of the award-winning film Another Body. And they'll be helping us to understand the real-life impacts of deepfake technology and tell us about the insights they've learned from making the film. And then, after that, Amanda Manyame, who's Equality Now's digital law and rights advisor, will take us through the findings of the research that we commissioned, looking at what the law says or doesn't say about deepfake sexual abuse and how well those laws protect victims looking for redress. And after those presentations, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A session. And we're particularly interested in hearing what you've got to say about what issues we need to bear in mind when we're making new laws so that they work effectively for victims. And what role do you think the platforms have got to play when they're hosting this content and need to play in preventing this form of tech-facilitated gender-based violence? So do put your thoughts and questions in the chat as we go along. I'm aware that the term deepfakes is a colloquial term, and in some parts of the world, the terms morphing or transmogrification are used. So just to be clear on what it is that we're talking about here. And so we're going to start shortly. I'm going to hand over now to Reuben Hamlyn from My Image, My Choice, who's going to help us to understand the real life impacts of deepfakes.
Thanks so much, Emma. It's great to be here. I think it's quite good to begin with a little bit of an elaboration of what a deepfake is. In its origins, a deepfake referred to a very specific form of technology which used AI to insert one person's face into video of another. That definition is somewhat expanded now, and colloquially it's used to refer to various sorts of technologies which create synthetic imagery of someone. This can be used in a non-sexual context, but it is now more and more regularly being used to sort of specifically used to refer to different forms of technologies which create transform an image of someone into a sexual image. So this can be either inserting someone's face in sort of pornography, or these new technologies, which are also called deep nude, which will strip someone of their clothing. As you can expect, these technologies of art in a sexual context are normally used without the person depicted's consent. And so me and Sophie and our our producer Elizabeth, we started My Image, My Choice in 2020. And My Image, My Choice is a cultural movement tackling intimate image abuse, not just deepfake, non-consensual deepfake pornography, but all forms of image-based sexual violence. And what our mission is to sort of drive cultural change around image-based sexual violence and really create a safe space for survivors to speak out. As mentioned, we also made Another Body, and Another Body follows an American engineering student's search for justice after she discovered deepfake pornography of herself online. And just to give you a sense of how that story plays out, we'd love to show you the trailer of that now.
I was sitting here with my boyfriend and my face popped up on the screen.
And then it kind of hit me what had actually happened.
Deepfake videos, which are manipulated using AI, can make someone appear as though they're saying or doing something that they're not.
Once these images are online, they never truly go away.
The detective that got assigned to the case, he said that it's disgusting what happened, but the person had a right to do it. Like, they didn't break any laws.
And then they told me they had closed the case.
I kept asking myself, why would someone want to do this, and who would do this?
Okay, all I have to say right now is holy about 20 minutes ago, I found out that I know the other girl who this is happening to. This is definitely a weird situation that we're in.
I'm just more mad that they put my name out there.
So we whittled down the suspects based on who we both knew.
Wait, I know her. Oh my god, that's Sadie.
It's definitely him then. There's no way.
The fact that the group of women is this big, it scares me because I have a gut feeling that we haven't even found all of them.
There is no woman in the world who is safe from this technology.
I'm worried that they're gonna do something more drastic.
You were also targeted by this kid that targeted me.
I'm very tired of ignoring it.
I believe that in his mind, he's getting back at us for wronging him.
I now know his name, where he lives.
I'm angry. You can't just do this and then move on with your life.
Amazing. Thank you for playing that. So I want to talk a little bit about, My Image, My Choice, because in some senses, it's like an impact campaign for the film. But it's a very unorthodox impact campaign. Typically, impact campaigns won't begin until the film's released into the world. And My Image, My Choice emerged out of the research phase of this documentary. We spoke to many, many, many survivors of image-based sexual violence, both deepfakes, but all forms of image-based sexual violence, to sort of better understand the context of this film. And we collected those interviews as testimony. And what was so common between the women that we were speaking to is a desire for, their experiences to have, some positive effect of the world, for there to be a silver lining from what they came through. And so we also were starting to speak to journalists in this space because, deepfakes were an evolving story. Image-based sexual violence was starting to get some attention paid to in the press. But what was really lacking in those articles was the important element of lived experience. And so we realized what role we could play here was to connect these survivors that we were speaking to with journalists that we'd sort of vetted to be as sensitive and respectful, and we believe that would sort of treat the survivors with their due sensitivity. And so we started to connect these people, and because of that, the survivors were having their stories told on these large scales or these large platforms. We also were speaking to research bodies like the UK Law Commission, the Oxford Digital Ethics Lab, and they were starting to research this space, but again, we're really lacking the lived experience. So we turned all these interviews into a data bank of testimony and started providing this to them for their research. And the My Image, My Choice coalition of survivors their testimony ended up constituting about 40 to 50% of the UK Law Commission's report on image-based sexual violence, which led to the laws in England and Wales being changed. And so what was, you know, really common, what we were sort of noticing with all of this is that part of the reason why there was such little accounts of sort of lived experience in media reportage about this is because so many women who this happened to are very scared of speaking out. And they're scared of speaking out for fear of retaliation. These communities that are sort of are known for image-based sexual violence that, you know, exist in the kind of colloquial dark web, but on websites like 4chan, who make and trade deepfakes, who share hacked images of women, images that were sent to them with consent to these broader communities, are really known for harassing anyone who speaks out and criticizes them. They're also sort of fear of this moment of this episode of victimization being the sort of defining episode of one's life. You know, this is particularly the case with the subject of our documentary, Taylor. She's this brilliant young engineering student, and she doesn't want to be known as, you know, the woman who was deepfaked. And so it's very, you know, it's hard. It's very important for these stories to be heard, but it's very difficult for the women who do stand up and speak out. And so we really have to commend the bravery of the people who are doing this, because they're putting themselves in the line of fire. The first woman, Noelle, to speak out against deepfake abuse was Noelle Martin. She's an Australian woman. She's so brilliant. But she talks about the harassment she faced after speaking out as being almost as bad as the original traumatic experience of having her face inserted into sexual imagery without her consent. And so it really is an extraordinary act for the women that do choose to sort of speak out and take a stand against this, because they are taking on a huge amount of risk because these communities are so aggressive. But it's so important for these stories to be heard, because otherwise we won't understand the effects of deepfakes. And the effects of deepfake abuse are incredibly diverse. There's not one way it can affect a person. On a personal level, they tend to cause like lasting and profound psychological harm. Helen Moore, who is an English writer, she's a poet and a university lecturer. She, after finding videos of herself on the internet, she found it very difficult to go outside. She would have panic attacks when she left the house because she didn't know who made the videos, and started to worry about everyone she was seeing as a potential physical threat to her. Or Bassem Khaled, who just recently, she was an Egyptian 17-year-old, and she died by suicide after being blackmailed with doctored images. Taylor, from Another Body, had existing anxiety and OCD, and after encountering the images and videos and being treated so poorly by the police, her issues with mental health became so debilitating. And so I want to show you that clip, but I also just want to sort of say at this point that, you know, the effects of deepfake abuse are very different depending on different contexts. That, you know, it's a global issue. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in India, it's happening in Australia, it's happening in South Korea and the United States and many other countries around the world. And the specific national contexts affect the way someone experiences this form of abuse, but also your sort of personal circumstances really sort of will define it as well. And we're now going to show you a clip of Taylor's response to it in relation to her pre-existing mental health issues.
I deal with a lot of anxiety and a lot of OCD, and the anxiety is really bad, especially now with the deepfakes. I feel like I'm not in control anymore, and because I feel like I'm not in control in that one area of my life, it's causing me to feel out of control in other areas of my life. Let me say that again, because I think it's important for people to know. I have always worried about things that don't make sense. I feel the compulsion to like know how others perceive me, and I need that to be in a positive way. Like, that's just how my brain like works, is like I'm a people pleaser. I never want people to perceive me in a way that's not like professional and not good. And I feel like what these videos did is just like destroy that.
My OCD generally like manifests itself into like I check things a lot. I check. I check to see if like the door is locked. I check to see if my car is locked. I check that things are off. And I repeatedly check them. And it's kind of like a broken record. It just can get like all-consuming, where I will worry for hours about something I've said, or worry for hours about if something's locked or if something's gonna catch fire or something, like, little things that just will consume my mind.
So I'm angry. I am done sitting around and waiting.
Thank you. And so as you can see, the personal effects of being victimized by non-consensual deepfake pornography are very profound, and yet around the world, there are very few places where there are adequate laws dealing with this. No one we've spoken to so far have felt satisfied with their experience with the police, and the result of this is that the psychological harm caused by the deepfakes is compounded. The feeling of being unsafe is made more severe by knowing that the people that are there to protect you are unable or unwilling to do so. And so it's really important that we, reform the way that the police handle cases like this. That's both legislative, but also with police training, and make sure that they know how to deal with people who have been targeted by this, and will not victim blame, and will ask the right questions and do everything in their power not to re-traumatize those who've gone through this. But beyond the personal level, on a societal level, deepfakes have a really profound and pernicious effect. Deepfakes are just one form of image-based sexual violence, and image-based sexual violence is just one form of online gendered harassment. And the result of this pervasive online gendered harassment is being termed the silencing effect by Amnesty International. And the silencing effect, in short, is kind of a pattern of women withdrawing from participation on the online sphere, on online spaces, like in social media, but even in like online publications, so that would mean women avoiding pursuing careers that are in the public eye, like in journalism or in politics or in the entertainment industry, because the sad truth is, of the women that we've spoke to who are in the public eye, they know that, and it almost feels like a necessary cost of being in the public eye, of pursuing a public career, is that you're going to be targeted online. Deepfakes are going to be made of you. You're going to have misogynistic harassment in the comments of everything you ever put out there. And so fewer and fewer women are feeling safe to go and pursue a career like this. They're feeling like they can't contribute to a discussion where they fear the potential misogynistic reaction of the other interlocutors in it. And so what we're having is a world where there is not free speech for women online, because women aren't speaking freely without fear of potential retaliation from other sort of trolls on the internet. And when we showed this film around, one of the disappointing things, it's totally understandable that it felt very disappointing to us, because it runs against what we were trying to say in the movie, is that women would come up to us and say, the only way I'm going to go home now and make all of my accounts private. Or fathers would come and say, I'm going to make my teenage daughters make their accounts private. And I understand that as a response, as a quick way of making yourself feel safe online. But if every woman was as to protect themselves from online gendered harassment and make their accounts private, we would have a situation where men would be the only people participating in these public forums. And the internet, to my mind, is the most important public forum in history. It's the largest, and it's where opinions are sort of made and swayed. And we can't have a world wherein the only people participating in these spaces are men. Imagine how the hellscape Twitter would be if it was only men posting publicly. And so it's really important that we adapt the way the internet works so women feel safe from all forms of online gendered harassment, from deepfakes, from image-based sexual violence, and to make sure that the public discourse is free. and everyone feels safe to use their voice and fight for what they believe in.
Thank you so much, Reuben. Yeah, absolutely recognise the chilling effect that this kind of crime has on women withdrawing from public life, and want to reflect as well on the experience of Taylor in the film when she phoned the police and they just didn't know what to do. And that's certainly kind of something that we're going to be talking about, I think, as this session goes on. So, but Sophie, over to you now. I'm going to invite you to tell us about your experiences of making the film, what the response has been, and what you've learned since making it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you just touched on a key learning, which is how so many of the institutions that people expect might protect them just have no idea what to do when they're presented with this kind of new technology, which actually is I think that the failure to address this is more grounded in misogyny and a failure to kind of listen to often women's experiences. And there's often a perception that the lack of knowledge comes from the fact that this is new technology, when actually the kind of experience that the survivors experience this as a form of sexual violence and as a violation. And so the idea of a police department like refusing to acknowledge that something has gone wrong, so when Taylor called the police, she not only did they say, we don't know what this is, they also said, what did you do to call this upon yourself? And so that she was met with that victim blaming response, which we've heard time and time and time again. So yes, that's one of many, many learnings. But one thing that I thought might be helpful to share was some of what we've gained through our kind of in-depth research through the film into the kind of landscape of like how this is actually taking place, and get a grip on the scale of the challenge that we all have. And to that end, I would love if Quality Now could play the first clip on anonymity.
So my name isn't really Taylor, and C-Tech. So my name isn't really Taylor, and C-Tech isn't a real college. All of this footage is of me, but the face you're watching right now isn't actually my face. It's an actor's face deepfaked over mine. This is the only way I would ever feel safe to tell my story.
Thank you so much. So as you see in the film, we decided to deepfake Taylor in order to protect her identity. She knew that by revealing her true name and information, she would be targeted viciously by the trolls that have tried to come after us all. And the kind of multiple 4chan threads have been made about us, about GB, about her. And so, but we also wanted to reclaim this technology. And that was a really core creative decision, because we don't believe that the technology itself is intrinsically the problem. We believe it's the misuse of the technology and the kind of frameworks, and especially the kind of internet architectures that are allowing this to be the kind of new frontier of violence against women. The technology has possible amazing applications. People can, people who've maybe lost their ability to speak in a car accident can continue to communicate in their own voice. Survivors who could never possibly share their story can share their story in an intimate way with their real facial expressions, but completely masked, as Taylor does. And also I wanted to show this because I wanted to reveal that deepfakes, I hope you agree, can now be indistinguishable from reality. So many people watched the end of the film and said to us, was she definitely deepfaked? Is that really not what she looks like? And that shows us the scale of the kind of technological challenge. And of course, artificial intelligence is on a path of exponential growth, and it's becoming vastly more accessible. And what we've seen in terms of the deepfake kind of landscape is that this practice is no longer niche. It has hit the mainstream and it is exploding. So we have recently discovered that research shows that more deepfakes, non-consensual deepfake porn imagery was posted in 2023 than in every year in history before that. So the rate of increase is just unbelievable. The number is growing exponentially. The videos have been viewed over 4 billion times. And as artificial intelligence is, expanding at pace, there's also been this huge growth in user-friendly apps and kind of web services that allow a much broader group of people to do this, from their home with the click of a button. And so what that's allowed is that the barrier to entry is so much lower. And therefore, that's facilitated this to happen in this vast scale that we're seeing at the moment, where actresses, but also politicians, YouTubers, anyone with a public profile, and also anyone with a lot of material of them online, is liable to be a target. And also politicians and journalists are being targeted as well, and activists in some cases. And of course, ordinary women, because with that accessibility, this becomes a new way of harming your classmate or your ex or your girlfriend. And you can go onto a deepfake website and commission a deepfake for very little money if you don't want to try and make it yourself. And also what we've seen is that quite a lot of this material, and we would say the vast majority of this material, is hosted on sites that are dedicated to this abuse. So at the beginning of our journey of exploring this, quite a lot of this was happening on quite lesser known forums on the internet. And now it's kind of hit the mainstream because people are accessing so-called deepfake porn sites as though it is a genre of porn, when it's not. It's a form of abuse. And these sites have actually started to grow in, they've become businesses as well as, places for this abuse to happen. They're almost trying to create this new form of PR where they are, just a commercial venture. We've seen deepfakers hiring other people to be their assistants. And that is because there aren't the legislative framework that say that these sites should not be operating in the way that they are. So to illustrate that a bit more clearly, I'd love to play the second clip.
Just Googling hey relish and I already have stuff coming up.
Yeah, it looks like he used to have a profile on something called MrDeepfakes.com. I searched the username. There's this one girl who's on here a lot for some reason. I don't recognize her.
Yeah, her name was also in the thread with my deepfake, I'm pretty sure. Oh, she's an ASMR YouTuber. She has 4.5 million subscribers.
Hello. My name is GB.
This looks like basically an instruction set on how to create deepfakes.
It says he has 1.6 million views. That's wild. Who, it says, but he only joined a year ago. It says he posted 132 videos. That's fucking insane. Clearly this was what he did in his free time. Someone that knew me on a very, very, very personal level. It's hard to believe that he has this complete other world that none of us knew about.
So hopefully that illustrates some of the ways in which this abuse is happening, and the complete untouchability of creators who can build a brand, a business, a kind of reputation, some form of twisted social status within their communities through doing this. And the final thing that feels really important for us to share is that it's not just these sites, these probably hard to rein in and likely to not respond to requests for information or respond to bodies like Ofcom or whoever's trying to rein them into legislative landscapes. But it's also this vast network of enablers around them. It's sites like Google through which the vast majority of traffic to these kind of sites goes. It's payment processing sites like PayPal or MasterCard. It's internet service providers. There are all these reputable businesses that prop up this cottage industry, which is 100% based on violating consent. And some of these actors like Google is really, really actively pushing this content. And so what we've, the final thing that we've learned is that these communities will not listen to the carrot, we believe. Like, we're going to need the stick, because their whole business model is around violating consent, and they're not going to give that up unless we believe they are forced to. So really looking forward to hearing more about the research and what the other panelists have to contribute.
Thank you very much, Sophie. And you kind of alluded to a lack of legal frameworks. So that's a really good segue into what Amanda's going to talk about. So I'm now going to invite Amanda Manyame, who is Equality Now's digital law and rights advisor, to talk us through the legal research that Audrey and Equality Now commissioned to see what the state of the law is in this area. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Emma. And I watched the documentary Another Body, and it's extremely chilling. But it was also good to be able to put a face to the challenges that we see in the law. So I'll just give a brief explanation of what Equality Now and the Alliance for Universal Digital Rights do. We essentially believe in a future where all citizens of the global digital ecosystem, no matter who you are or where you live, can enjoy equal rights to safety, freedom, and dignity. We also understand that women and girls are disproportionately affected by sexual violence, both online and offline, and it is rooted in sex, gender, and intersecting inequalities and abuse of power that perpetuates women and girls' subordination in society. In our work to ensure safety, freedom, and dignity, we leverage the law to change the status quo, as well as to promote and protect human rights. So in 2023, we decided to embark on research, which was supported by Hogan Lovells, an international law firm. And we wanted to research what are the laws that currently regulate deepfake image-based sexual abuse. We also wanted to find out, is the term deepfake defined in law? What terms are being used? What terms are being used internationally, but also what terms are being used in different countries? And we also wanted to find out, are there any other laws that could protect from deepfakes? So these laws could include maybe copyright laws, privacy, defamation, or consumer protection laws. So the research looked at international human rights law, the law in the EU, Australia, England and Wales, Kenya, New Zealand, Nigeria, Scotland, South Africa, and the US. In the US, we particularly looked at California, Texas, and Virginia, because the US as a whole did not have federal law on deepfakes. So we found quite a few things, but I'll just highlight some of our key findings. We found that largely, there's not much protection on deepfake sexual violence. We found that you won't find the term deepfake in laws because it is a colloquial term. So you'll find maybe in countries such as South Africa, the UK, and Australia, where there are laws that criminalize the production and sharing of images that depict the likeness of the victim or have been altered or manipulated to depict the likeness of the victim. It is very important to note that these laws specifically state likeness of the victim, whereas a number of the laws we found, which I'm going to get into later, talk about the victim. So it's not about likeness, it's just about the actual victim. And we know that in law, words are important. So if you say victim and you don't say likeness or manipulated or altered, it means that that law would not protect when it comes to deepfakes. Our other finding was that in the other countries, we looked at 9 countries, so only 3 of them had a law that you could say covers deepfakes, and the rest of the countries, 6 of them, did not actually have any specific protection for deepfakes. So we found that the majority of these countries, you would have to rely on broadly applying laws such as privacy laws, defamation laws, or mis- and disinformation laws. For example, you find that in Kenya, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act criminalizes the intentional publishing of false, misleading, or fictitious information. So one could argue that a deepfake is false, misleading, or fictitious information. Whether a court would believe that, I'm not necessarily sure. We also found that the extent to which laws could provide protection has not been tested in court. So we have what we would call protective laws in Australia, the UK, and South Africa. The UK's online safety bill was only recently passed, so it's a fairly new law. South Africa's law is maybe only 2 years old, and Australia would have the oldest Online Safety Act. And there's some mechanisms in place as well. But again, we don't have a court case which has looked at the provisions and whether they would apply to deepfakes. So for us to be able to know whether these laws would adequately protect a victim, we would have to be able to test them in court on a country-by-country basis. Also note that we don't have any international law, so at this point would be looking at country-specific laws, which also comes with its own challenges. So we would need to examine each law again on a country-by-country basis through that country's judicial process to understand things such as whether the provision criminalizes the non-consensual sharing of private images of a victim, and would it even be enough to say that the image itself was altered or manipulated. Would also need to look at whether the existing law is adequate, and there are other challenges such as reporting or gathering of digital evidence, because you will find that in a number of instances, the challenge is that the evidence of the harm, the deepfake itself, is sitting on a server in a different country from the victim. So let's say the victim is in Australia. The Australian E-Safety Commission or a court would need to get access to the video that was used. To get access to that, a screenshot would not suffice because you would need to be able to have a digital certificate which says that this image or this video was actually posted on this site on that date, so on and so forth, and other different data. So getting that would require you to be able to go to that platform. Let's say Mr. Deepfakes. Mr. Deepfakes would have to get it from their server. But if Mr. Deepfakes is not domiciled, as in if they don't have, if they are not legally within a specific country, you would not be able to then apply your country's law to whatever country they're in. So there's all of those other challenges. Even if the letter of the law says the law should protect from deepfakes, there may be a number of other challenges as well. And another challenge would be, and another thing that would also want to look at is trying to understand, do we just need legal protections, or do we also need other protective measures? One of the things as Equality Now we have heard a lot of from survivors is, I just want to get the content taken off the platform. So the law will come in at a later stage, but first instance, you just want it you want it to be taken off the platform and off of the internet. So from our findings, we have 3 broad recommendations. Firstly, national responses and mechanisms have to be supported by strong, interconnected international responses. As I have said, the evidence would be sitting in a different country. So it's not enough for South Africa, for the UK, to have a very good law. You would also need the rest of the world to have similar laws. Secondly, we need laws that are fit for purpose. So here we would urge governments to review existing laws to see if they would apply and protect from deepfakes and any other emerging harms. So when looking at legal reforms, nations and international laws should also consider the gendered nature of these forms of harm. The laws should also provide monitoring and enforcement mechanisms which are similar to the Australian Online Safety Act, which gives Australia's e-Safety Commission substantial powers to protect all Australians across online platforms where harm could be experienced. It is important to have a mechanism in place. The law would not just be enough. International standards and cooperation is also critical, as I have mentioned earlier on. So in the short term, there are key conventions we could leverage, but also in the long term, there's quite a lot of discussions around the Global Digital Compact, as well as the UN Cybercrimes Convention. So it would be important to call on member states as they're discussing this year to finalize on these two documents, to consider one, the gendered nature of online harms, deepfakes or otherwise, and all other harms that particularly harm women. Our last recommendation is for collaboration and accountability, which is needed from all stakeholders, but in this case, particularly the tech sector. We need laws and standards that can hold tech platforms accountable to cooperate with law enforcement within and across borders, and ensure that they proactively identify harms and perpetrators and take swift action to respond to incidents as they happen. But in doing all of these, would also call on the tech platforms to ensure that they respect other human rights. That is all from a legal perspective, but there is still quite a lot of work that needs to be done in the research. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for that presentation. And, it's really clear to me that there are definitely gaps in the law relating to deep fakes and a lack of consistency in the types of laws that victims can use to get justice. And a question mark that you're posing over how joined up those laws are when addressing sexual violence online that happens across borders. And I'm glad that you mentioned the Global Digital Compact, for example, which is going to be negotiated at the UN this year, as a good kind of starting point to talk about that. So now it's the time to invite questions and comments from you in the audience. We're particularly interested in your experiences, where you live. For example, I know that deepfake sexual sharing of images has led to honour-based violence in some countries. It would be great to hear what your experiences are where you live. And also, we're interested in what you think we need to bear in mind when making new laws so that they work effectively for victims. What we don't want is what happens to Taylor in the film, Another Body, where she rings up the police and the police say, well, I don't really know what to do. And also addressing what Amanda was saying finally, which is, what do you think the platforms hosting this content, how do they need to be held accountable, and how do tech companies who are facilitating the spread of this material, what should their role be in this as well? So I'm very keen to put your questions in the chat, put your comments in the chat, and it would be great to hear from you.
I'm wondering, Emma, because I have a reflection based on one of the comments that you made. Would it be worth bringing that up now whilst
Yes,
whilst people are typing their thoughts?
That sounds great. Thank you.
So we've done a lot of work advocating for Google to change their policies. And actually, Google is quite a good case study because one, they are responsible for so much of the sharing of deepfake abuse, but two, they do have harmful content policies. So they do police content that is considered child abuse and animal abuse. And de-index and downrank content that is particularly, that kind of drives users to participate in these activities. So we are really trying to get the buy-in that and push on a public awareness position for gender-based violence to be considered as serious an issue, and for them to take responsibility, their role in being the conduit that drives and actually promotes so much of this, so many of these sites for the majority of users.
Thanks very much for that. We've had a question in the chat, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. Are there any survivors? Is there a survivors' bill of rights regarding image-based sexual abuse? Is anybody on the panel aware of anything like that?
No, I'm not aware of anything like that. But I maybe just to speak to it also a little bit, in that you will find that a lot of our laws are not gendered in nature. So they're not necessarily going to consider this a problem where women are the ones that are disproportionately have to deal with it. So, you know, it becomes a challenge for a lot of women to then champion and say, okay, could we have a Bill of Rights that specifically, you know, in the for instance, in the UK online Safety Act, to champion and say, you know, this is specifically a problem which is gendered in nature. So could we listen to survivors of this harm? Could we introduce certain measures that, you know, speak primarily to women? And, you know, no one really listens. Similarly with the tech platforms where we've also called on, could you have more gender responsive policies? Again, it's, you know, they have to be gender neutral because we're trying to protect all people. But the challenge is these harms are perpetuated against women, you know, because of society as it is as a whole. So it's not just an online problem; it's an offline problem that's just being mirrored. We don't have a tech problem, as some people have said. We have a human problem.
Thank you very much for that, Amanda. I've had a question come in from Vishaka in India, who would like to better understand, maybe Sophie or Reuben, this is one for you, better understand how Google is promoting deepfakes. Is it mainly by having those links come up in a Google search, for example?
Yes, I mean, so Google, there is precedent for Google to sort of de-index or de-rank certain content online. They'll do this with, like, instance websites which promote like violence against animals, or they'll do it against websites which is hosting copyrighted material, like illegal streaming sites where you can watch Hollywood movies that haven't been uploaded with the permission of the copyright owner. But they don't do it in the case of sort of deepfake pornography. If you search for deepfake pornography on Google, you will be able to access it with great ease. But beyond that, what Google is doing is actually driving people towards non-consensual deepfake content who don't necessarily have the intention of finding it. For example, if you search AOC's thoughts on deepfakes, the first results will not be her comments on image-based sexual violence. The first like 5-6 results are all non-consensual deepfake pornographic videos featuring AOC. Even if you watch another body film online, the first couple results are like our trailer and like links to watch on Apple and Amazon. After that, every single result is a link to non-consensual deepfake content or websites and apps which facilitate the creation of non-consensual deepfake content. And so through, I don't know, the matrix of Google's like search function, they're driving people to non-consensual deepfake videos or applications which will facilitate the creation of them, even if they don't have the intention of finding them. And so what we want is from Google to do more to sort of moderate what is appearing on their search function, to flag websites which are facilitating this like industry of abuse, and to try and derank and delist them to stymie the flow of people to these websites. And so, yeah, that's kind of our mission at the moment.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Google says that in their intentions with search is that they don't want to lead people to explicit or shocking content that they weren't looking for. So, but what we're finding is that as Reuben elucidated, even celebrities who have made any comment about this situation or have spoken out about it whatsoever, that will drive further traffic to them. So one terrible example was a YouTuber called Pokimane, who was a journalist discovered that one of her colleagues had been watching deepfake porn of her, and so she became kind of the center of this big media storm. And if you type in, as Reuben elucidated, Pokimane deepfake situation, again, that will pull up the content of her. And if you can't type in many female celebrities' name and pornography, whether or not they've acted in porn, it will pull up non-consensual intimate abuse imagery of them. So that's why we do use the word promoting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's a really great answer to the question. You've illustrated it really well. I've got another question here, which is kind of controversial one in some ways. With increasing access to generative AI, do you think AI can be part of the solution to counter image facilitated gender-based violence? And if so, I mean, I'm kind of aware of some platforms who are accused of, selling the antidote to the poison that they've already created. And it would be useful maybe to hear from you, Sophie, first. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, we think absolutely. And one key case study we would humbly submit is our film and other amazing activism, such as the work of Bill Posters, that are using these tools in order to bring awareness, bring attention, allow people to speak who couldn't speak about certain issues. Also, crucial, one weapon in the arsenal that we really need is deepfake detection. We need to be able to find these videos more quickly, and that's something, especially on social media platforms, will be important in terms of misinformation and disinformation. There's one big caveat to that, which is that quite a lot of legislative responses really hyper focus on deepfake detection and kind of content verification. And whilst that is important, in the case of deepfake pornography, these deepfake sites do not hide the fact that they are deepfake pornography sites. So it's not really a case of misinformation. It's more a case of violation and consent. And the final thing is that unfortunately some people have used, to your example, Emma, some people, there is a business model of people creating deepfake porn and then essentially extorting the victim by saying, we know how to get this content removed if you sign up to this very expensive web service. And GB, one of the contributors in our film, was one of the people that has been targeted with this kind of like extortion scheme. So we have to be very suspicious about who is actually doing the deepfake detecting and what their business model is, and making sure that they are handling data in the most sensitive way.
Thank you. I'm just kind of in our final couple of, sorry, Reuben, did you want to come in? I'm also kind of quite interested in the question around, like platforms like Mr. Deepfakes. What do you think about those? What do you think action needs to be taken to stop those sites from being able to do what they do?
Well, it's very difficult to get a website completely taken down. It's possible, and there is precedent for it, but it's very, very difficult, particularly when their servers are often hosted in countries where it's very hard to legislate from afar or to apply pressure from afar. And that tends to be the case with these pretty seedy websites like Mr. Deepfakes. But what is really possible is to restrict access to it, to sort of break the make it so much harder. Every time you go onto a website like Mr. Deepfakes, as Sophie sort of illustrated in her talk, there are various steps you need to take which are propped up by reputable companies. For example, Googling, even turning on your internet and accessing the internet using Verizon. We can go to an internet service provider and say, you are hosting this harmful content. Will you restrict access to this website, which is purpose-made to share non-consensual intimate imagery of people. Right now they haven't done anything about it, but in the future there is precedent for them to completely block websites like that. We can go to Google and Bing and all the other search functions and be like, can you de-index all of these websites from your search function? So then if someone Googles deepfake, I want to watch deepfake pornography, nothing will actually show up for them. We can also go to the internet service providers that aren't consumer facing, the websites which are sort of like hosting, the companies which are hosting the website itself, like Cloudflare, for example, used to host 8chan, which was a website like 4chan. And after a lot of public pressure, because a high school shooting was basically like live tweeted on their website, they eventually pulled service from 8chan, and that caused 8chan to basically disappear from the internet. So there are various avenues we can sort of take to make it much harder for a user who is intending to go and access non-consensual deepfake pornography to find it on the internet, and it will really prevent anyone who's not intending to find that form of content from accessing it. And so that's our hope and our intention is to go to the companies which are propping up this industry, the companies like Visa and MasterCard, which are making it a viable business because they're processing the payments which are happening on these websites, and get them to sort of pull their service from them. We just want to make their lives very, very difficult for both the users and the companies themselves. And hopefully that won't eliminate this content from the internet, but it'll greatly reduce the amount of people who are accessing it.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. We're just got in the last few minutes, I wanted to say a couple of things, which is, you know, if you've registered for this event, then you've probably received a link to Reuben and Sophie's film, Another Body. If you haven't received that link yet, I'm sure you will shortly, and that's going to be live for a week, so do watch the film. You'll also be getting a copy of the research that Amanda was speaking about. And I'm going to just invite Amanda and Sophie very briefly in 1 minute or less to just outline what the next steps are for them in this regard. Sophie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think the tech accountability piece that Reuben spoke about is only really going to happen in a big way when we get the new laws in. So these two things have to happen together. But in the meantime, and always, we have been absolutely blown away by what happens when people find the incredible courage to share their stories. And whilst these kind of high-level infrastructures are absolutely essential and critical to sort this problem out, it can feel very disempowering trying to take on, you know, create a digital rights framework for the entire world and stop big tech from being big tech. But in the meantime, we absolutely can be building communities that make it easier for people to speak out about their experiences, and that has a vast ripple effect. So anybody that feels able to speak out, I really do encourage considering doing so and using support services such as the Revenge Porn Helpline and the Cyber Civil Rights Initiative in the US.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Amanda, can I hand over to you for what's your plan for what's next?
What's next for equality now is to take the legal research a step further. I would like to bring it to life by bringing in some survivor voices as well as voices of law enforcement, prosecutors, so the entire chain to say what are some of the challenges that you face, where are the gaps, and what are the possible opportunities. And by having a larger research paper, we're hoping to outline, to different countries that are coming up with laws as well as member states that are working on, let's say, the global digital compact, for them to be able to see and understand what the problem actually is, where the law needs to change, and the fact that the law as it is not working, and how we could possibly maybe make it work, and also maybe change the fact that tech does need to be accountable now. It has become a lot more powerful than it was 20 years ago.
Thank you very much for those concise thoughts. I want to say thank you so much to all of the speakers, and thank you very much to everyone for joining us and for your thoughtful comments and questions. Please go to the Audrey website and sign up for our newsletter. You can also join as a supporter of Audrey. It's free, and you can follow us on LinkedIn. And I'm really looking forward to working with everybody on this call to stop the terrible and devastating crime of deepfake sexual abuse. Thank you so much. I think we can stop recording now.